Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Temte. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today, we have James Lawrence joining us. James is the CEO and co-founder of Happy Companies. Happy delivers plug-and-play AI-enhanced coaching solutions and aims to revolutionize the world of work by empowering people, teams, and organizations. Personally, I've been keenly interested in democratizing organizational coaching since way back in 2016, and I am so pleased to welcome James to the show.
Andy, I'm excited.
Thanks so much for being here. James, before we get started, it would be great if you told our listeners the short version of your story.
Oh, man, the short version of my story.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you where it starts is I like to tell this sometimes. Both of my parents were psychologists. Actually, not just psychologists, they were psychoanalysts.
Oh.
So you can feel bad for me now.
I will.
You can only imagine what the dinner table looked like when I was in third grade. So fast forward to me attending UCLA when I went home and told both my, doctor parents I was dropping out of college to start my first business. Another thing I'm going to put on the do not recommend list.
Yep.
But, have been an entrepreneur my whole life. Love building things, love creating things. I've had 5 startups and, just love creating, love building, love entrepreneurship in general. It's been a wild ride. So I'm 48 now, and Happy's the latest adventure.
That's awesome. So, James, one event in your life, just a key accelerant for your career. What is that moment?
First time I found access to an executive coach. So I found myself in my early 30s, a young CEO, probably had 75 employees at the time, and recognized that my leadership and the way that I communicated with my team had some room for improvement. And I managed to find a phenomenal executive coach, a gentleman by the name of John Delmatoff. And John, I saw John every week, and John really... He changed my life. I wouldn't be here today talking about Happy if it wasn't for John, but getting access to a former CEO, someone that helped teach me behavioral science. It was the first time I ever took a behavioral assessment. He really helped me understand myself, but more importantly, helped me understand the people in my team and how I could get the best out of them. So that was really a pivotal moment for me.
Well, and to have that happen in your early 30s, I know for some that might seem late, but that's actually quite early in the arc of many people's careers to wake up to the value of coaching, and that's going to be our theme all day today. So, James, I'm going to try really hard to not let my jealousy of you, because you're doing what I wanted to do 8 years ago, but also, my excitement of having this conversation and really amplifying the Happy value proposition. I'll try to tone that down just a little bit, but let's start with Happy. Can you give us the 3-minute elevator pitch on what Happy is, who's it for, and what's the business purpose?
It's pretty simple. You and I talked a little bit before the podcast. It was like the podcast before the podcast. Really what Happy's designed to do is provide personalized coaching at scale. And it uses behavioral science to do it. We're enhanced with AI, and I'll tell you how. But we provide personalized and individualized coaching through the tools your employees already use. So that would be tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Gmail, Zoom, the tools they use every day. And Andy, give me the name of somebody you work with. Any name. Nick. So here's how Happy works. In less than 10 minutes, Happy learns how you prefer to work and how you communicate. And there's a simple assessment when you first go into Happy that you take. It takes less than 5 minutes. It asks you some questions. It learns me. It learns Nick. And it also learns over time. It learns a bit about you and I and Nick. And what it really is learning is who you and I and Nick work with, who we Slack, who we send emails to. It doesn't read the contents of your email, but it learns who you communicate with. And then let's say you and I had a meeting tomorrow with Nick. Happy would send you a Slack message that would say, hey, you're meeting with Nick tomorrow. Here's a few tips for your meeting. Now, if you and I were both meeting with Nick, it would send you a Slack message. It would send me a Slack message. We would both get a Slack message. We would not get the same Slack message because you and I are not the same.
Right.
So the way Happy's technology works is that every piece of coaching and every piece of insights in the platform is all contextualized and personalized to you.
So a happy customer, a client, and the end user is getting interventions in the flow of work. If I'm understanding this correctly, it's not like you take yourself out of the world of work, you go do some coaching with Happy and then come back into the world of work, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Happy uses two different learning models. We use a continuous learning model and we use an episodic learning model. And so there was a lot of research that we did, and there's a lot of debate. Like, let's just say we had episodic learning, right? Would be, we're going to take a seminar tomorrow on emotional intelligence for managers. And so the data would suggest that if you and I had a 4-hour seminar tomorrow, we might get some aha moments. It might impact our behavior. It might impact how we work with our coworkers. But over time, that would fade. And the value of a 1-hour seminar or a 1-day seminar, 6 months to 9 months later, there's a 70 to 80% scrap rate, organization wide on one piece of episodic learning. And now that being said, there is values for episodic learning. And so, for example, an example is, let's say that you and I had a tough conversation in person, and you were my manager. Well, at that moment, I'm undergoing stress. I am frustrated. I need coaching on you, or how to work better with you, how to resolve a dispute. I don't know how to do that. I don't have access to a personal coach. And so what do? Well, with Happy, you can use both models. So I can jump into Happy and I can look you up and I can learn how to better communicate with you, how to resolve a conflict, how to pitch you an idea if I'm having a disagreement with you. So there's, I'm able to access episodic coaching when I need it. Kind of, we call it on demand. But tomorrow morning at 9:00, Happy might send a Slack message to me, and it might include how to work better with a coworker, or it might even include some self-development tips. So we have used a continuous learning model combined with on-demand coaching.
Excellent.
But that's really how, I don't know if you ever watched Discovery, or you're watching the TV at 11:00 at night, and it's like how a bird flies, and it's like, you're watching how a bird flies and you go, well, that's beautiful. Like, nature, created this extremely efficient, engineering model, and it's called a bird. And then, so we just looked at coaches and how does an effective coaching model work? Well, you meet with your coach every week or two, you have some things to work on or talk about. But if you have a crisis or a problem, what do you pick your phone up and you text your coach, you call your coach and you go, hey, John, just had a really frustrating meeting with Andy. Could you help me right now? Because maybe I've got to meet with you tomorrow on this. I might not be able to wait a week.
Right.
So we just emulated what we think the way the world's best coaches operate.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm curious about we're going to talk later about the AI component and really get how you help decision makers get past kind of those mental blockers of, AI, this is going to take over my business. But before we get there, what is the training model for the AI itself? What is the AI learning from? Is it just learning from me and my colleagues within the confines of a business, or is it taking lessons and training itself from all such participants?
Yeah, interesting perspective. And so, when I get asked this, unfortunately, Andy, I like to answer it with a different answer than the original question. So one of the things you'll learn is, I know all of us humans think we're incredibly unique, and we all are one of one.
Yeah.
But the reality is that there's very predictable behavior patterns that people tend to fall into. And so, the truth is that we learn who you are, and with relative stability and reliability are able to understand you quite efficiently. And so the magic isn't actually in like getting to better understand the last 5% of you. It's actually in getting you to understand and apply that in your everyday relationships. And so the magic of happy is actually in the nudging and insight system, and not so much in like the listening. Not that there's not tools that we're using. So we are looking at the kind of coaching that you're intaking. We're looking at what coworkers are you getting coaching on. So there is observation, but really the secret sauce is, how do we find the key to improving your communication with someone else? For example, are you frequently running into a problem pitching ideas? And what are the styles of people that you're running into problems with? When you report conflict, what are the personality types that you're typically running into conflict with? And what I would tell you is that you're typically the average person, whether you're an individual contributor, you're a CEO, you're a leader. The biggest obstacle to happy being effective is figuring out how to solve the problem that you have repeatedly that is similar. So I'll give you an example. If you are an extroverted person, your love language is typically being very verbal or very communicative. And you might not have an appreciation for creating the kind of space that an introvert might typically want in a conversation. And so, the real crux of it is, if we have a dominant personality or someone that's very, very outgoing, how do we turn them into a better listener? Like, that's the magic. And that's something that we're really keyed in on, is how do we inspire behavior change? Because it's not just information, it's how do we inspire a behavioral change, inside the organization.
Right. Thank you for helping expand on the behind happy. I was really interested in that kind of one layer down in terms of the functionality. So really clear. Thank you, James. Now, looking through your background, it's not blindingly obvious that an online AI enhanced coaching business would be your next gig, because you come from the automotive media market to online coaching. What's the through line between these seemingly very disparate career paths?
Yeah, I've got all kinds of surprises for you, Andy. No, I fell in love with cars when I was 16, and it's always been my passion and continues to be a passion. But what I really love is leading. And I like inspiring the best in people. And that's always been something that both myself and my co-founder, Megan, have always just really taken to heart, is how do you create better people? How do you build great organizational cultures? But I'm into all kinds of hobbies. I've won a couple racing championships. I'm currently working on getting my private pilot's license.
Wow.
So I like challenges. And back in 2016, kind of talking about how I made this jump, and I mentioned John. I had a phenomenal relationship with John. He was my executive coach, and I actually had asked John to coach a couple other members of our organization at the time. We got some really good outcomes. But one of the things I asked myself is, how do I take this really phenomenal win with John? And let's just call my work with John. John might listen to this, so I'm just going to call it an A. Maybe it was an A-, but we'll just call it an A for just in case John's listening. But it was it was a phenomenal experience working with a coach. And then, we got some of our executive team to work with John. And then we said, look, we We have 75 members of the organization, which is not a large business, but we said, how do we take the emotional intelligence we've developed? How do we take this magic in a bottle that John brought to our leadership team, and how do we sprinkle this fairy dust across the other 68 people in the organization? Man, that's really hard.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. And so we ran the same playbook, right? That most companies run today. We created seminars, we created workshops. John came in and gave, every month we did a different workshop, and then we took our up and coming managers. You and I were joking about 9-box. We took, our top of the 9-box. We started taking our up and coming managers and getting them coaching. We brought even a second coach because John ran out of time, or I was giving him too much money. One of the two. And it's just really hard to do at scale. And so, never mind being Meta, or being, 1,000, 1,500 head company. I mean, we had a hard time scaling a 100-person company.
Right.
And one of the things at the time I said was like, there has got to be a better way to do this. And that was in my head starting in probably 2014. And so, I've been a technologist for a long time, have innovated in actually some different software products outside of automotive. And so, we just 2018, 2019, we're like, let's start building this thing.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that through line with us, because when folks go and connect with you on LinkedIn, they're going to look at your historical job record and go, wow, that's quite the leap, but it makes perfect sense now. James, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Andy here. I've got a new podcast I'd like to introduce you to, The Saturday Morning Muse. Start your weekend with me by exploring topics that span leadership, business management, education, and other musings that are designed to support your journey of personal and professional continuous improvement. Subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. And we're back with James Lawrence talking about the importance of coaching to a strong organizational culture. James, let's suppose that you have a skeptical leader sitting in with you right now who hasn't gotten the ROI that they were expecting from previous implementations of coaching and leadership development tools and thinks it's all just a waste of time. How do you shift their mindset? How is Happy different, and what data do you provide to support your arguments to this skeptical leader?
Andy, I usually start by asking some questions, because I find often that when an executive or a senior leader doesn't feel like there's value in this type of investment, I usually want to understand better what their objective is. What I find is that some CEOs have a harder time drawing a red line or red thread in between what I would call positive organizational DNA and then the 2 Ps, which I call productivity and profit.
Right.
And one of the reasons is I had a CEO of a 1,800 person company tell me they spend most of their money in sales training. And when we started asking and diving into it, the response was, well, I've tried all the rest of it and it doesn't work. And I think that there's some real truth to that, because changing your organizational DNA is not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens fast. It's not something that happens quickly. And so really Happy was engineered to provide a more effective, lighter weight, more cost-effective way to change organizational culture and communication, improve I would say manager-employee relationships are probably the number one driver of organizational culture. And so if we do nothing other than provide tools to the manager to better understand their individual contributors, there's a lot of magic there. So, we can give you data. You asked for a data point. I'll give you one quick data point, which I think is really interesting. Most new software products that are installed in most companies today have a very, very low engagement rate. Like if you install a new software to process travel and entertainment expenses, the average piece of software 6 months in is only utilized by 30% of the organization. So one of the things that we're really proud about is 90 days into a typical Happy installation, we have 92% of the organization getting coaching because they get it right in the flow of work.
Yeah.
So whether they're using Microsoft Teams or email or Zoom, it's right there accessible to them. And so when they get a piece of coaching on their coworkers, they opt in to continue to get it because they find it valuable, but it's also a really light lift for them. So it's like high utility and like low effort.
Yeah.
Because they're busy. They're not lazy, they're busy.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about democratization. I believe strongly, I'm with you, that coaching solutions should be available equitably, maybe not equally, but equitably across organizations. But historically, coaching has only been available to top performers in the C-suite. How do you convince that same skeptical leader from the previous question to make coaching available organization-wide?
I think it's easy when you look at the data. So for example, we have over 80% of managers that use Happy after 90 days report that they have improved their management skill or their relationship with at least one of their individual reports as a result of the coaching they got from Happy. So what I like to do with leaders is I like to show them some of our beta testing that we did, and I like to show them what a new employee's life looks like when they have Happy. And so, for example, how can I improve my relationship with a coworker? How can I better know Andy? How can I pitch an idea to Andy? The type of coaching that an individual contributor will ask for, or like, I am stressed at work. How can I resolve a conflict? The question I like to ask is that if you don't give coaching resources to, let's say, your newer employees or your younger employees, a Gen Z entering the workforce that's experiencing stress, what is the consequence of not providing coaching to that employee? Well, I would say one of two things. On a macro level, that employee undergoes stress and they have no outlet, they have no way to address that stress that they're receiving. And so that typically manifests itself in worst case retention. If someone's experiencing stress or frustration, they want to improve their communication. I think the best case is it's just lost opportunity. Someone's wanting to improve or develop themselves and there's no resources available. So, I think on a macro level, it's easy to understand that providing a solution that gives your employees resources to improve their relationships and to improve themselves. I think on a macro level, it's pretty obvious that if you don't do anything and you lose someone, what it costs to replace them.
Right.
But I think when you look at the entire organization, human coaching, if you can afford it, is phenomenal. I mean, when you can have a one-on-one coach that, especially if you're a CEO, you have a former CEO that's been there, that's experienced what you've experienced. I mean, that is the gold standard. But I haven't talked to an organization yet, and I probably, am engaged in conversations with 10 Fortune 500s. And there's not a C-level leader that's told me that every employee in their organization has a coach. It just doesn't exist.
Right.
And so I think the question to leaders is, if you really want to invest in your people, you really start need to think about the entire life cycle of the employee experience. Yeah.
James, the question I had queued up next about the use of AI, if I can, I'd just like to pivot just a little bit here, because what we've just been talking about really raises this question of the manager's responsibility and duty to be a coach to their people. That if I look at the standard work or the job description, if you will, of any manager on the planet, coaching your people should be like at the top of the list.
Right. Should be.
It should be. Unfortunately, it's not. And there's a lot of managers who would just love to get rid of that responsibility and delegate that to a tool like Happy. How does Happy, my question is, how does Happy help strengthen the relationship between employee and manager, and simultaneously prevent manager from just saying, oh, okay, we have a Happy implementation now, so therefore I don't have to be a coach to my people?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'd start with some data. I mean, if you look at some of the data that's coming out in the last year, some of the data coming out of Gallup said, I think it's 74% of employees would like to get more coaching from their manager or more help from their manager. But managers simultaneously report they don't have the time to coach their employees. So I think if you actually look, at how the world works for the vast majority of employees, they want the coaching. I think their managers want to give them the coaching. Their managers just have too much work to do it. The manager just doesn't have the bandwidth to give the time really to the employees that they want to. And so I think what Happy does is act as a supplement. A manager or a leader is not going to be replaced by a bite-sized piece of insights on your coworkers. What I hope Happy provides is context and valuable insights that you can use to improve your relationship with your manager, or your manager can use to improve your relationship with you. I would say that in most high-functioning organizations, listening and understanding is, probably the number one driver of engagement or organizational culture. High performance cultures or listening cultures.
Yeah. So Gallup, mentioning Gallup estimates that 70% of the variability in engagement is related to the manager. And my hope for you and Happy, and I can't say this enough. I am so excited for you and what you're going to be able to do for employee engagement and coaching in the world of work. My hope is that as you get more installations of Happy, you get more managers who maybe were a little more skeptical of their role as a coach to their people, and more managers start waking up to, oh, this coaching stuff does really work. It really is valuable, and I need to be doing more of it and not less. So, James, as we close out the show, got some fun lightning round questions for you. Question number 1, I give you access to a time machine. You can send a message to an earlier version of James Lawrence. What's the message, and what previous version of yourself do you choose to send it to?
Oh, I cracked up on this one. Probably to my 16-year-old version of myself. I was really, really hard on myself in high school.
Yeah.
And I wished I could tell myself that everybody is just as nervous and anxious as you are. It's just, I think in high school, I think it's really such a critical time to be able to just normalize being a human. And, life is all about adventure. None of us know what the hell we're doing.
Right.
And so, that's probably what I would tell myself is, you're normal. All the feelings you have are normal. And it's funny, I actually tell, just to take that, I know it's a lightning round, but just to take that to like common day, it's some of the things that I really like to tell CEOs. And you might laugh, but I do get the opportunity to talk to a lot of CEOs, a lot of, VPs of people, and they think they're telling me some secret when they're telling me how effed up their company is. Like, don't tell anybody, but man, we've really got this people thing screwed up. And I'm like, you're okay.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has this people thing figured out. So like, it's good.
Right.
We're all trying to figure out, especially in this new world of work, right? With hybrid work, Gen Z, I mean, the world of work's changed. And, I think we're all trying to find a new normal and trying to sort through this the best we can.
What a fantastic answer. if only our 16-year-old versions of ourselves would listen to anything at all.
Point taken.
Right. So
you get all the way back in time and your 16-year-old self won't listen to you.
Right. Absolutely. You spend all that time, all that effort hopping in a time machine and you're like, yeah, forget it, old man. I'm not listening to you.
Oh my.
Anyway, James, we're all works in progress. What are you focused on right now in your personal journey of growth?
I think giving myself grace with building something new like Happy. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned through this journey is there's just a path to a product. There's a path to a career. There's a path to a person. There's a path to a relationship, a life. And, I'm a perfectionist and I've got to have it done right now. And I have very high standards. So it's like, in a way, I wish I could just snap my fingers and every Fortune 500 company would have a tool like Happy and would be, seeing the improvements that we see at scale in some of the organizations that we work with. But it just doesn't work like that. And, I think for me, it's just really understanding the patience of the path and recognizing with appreciation that every CEO I come in contact with, every CHRO, one of the beautiful parts of having these conversations is where we get to talk about what the future looks like. And, I read a stat the other day that the AI coaching industry is going to be a $12 billion industry within 10 years, which I thought was neat, whether it's, AI or any other type of science-based coaching. I think the beautiful part is people are getting the opportunity to get better. And so we're able to use technology in a way to help people improve themselves. And I think that's pretty neat. Yeah. It's just not going to happen on my projected timeline.
Right. Which is next week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. James, you've been an absolute delight to talk to today. And I am certain our listeners got a great deal from this conversation. Where can our listeners learn more about Happy?
Yeah, so they can go to happycompanies.com. We are debuting next week a free version of Happy. One of the things that we decided, we have gotten an absolutely enormous amount of requests for allowing individuals to create Happy profiles. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of people that don't have the keys to the castle in their organization, but still want to get access to our coaching and our profiles and our behavioral science. So you'll be able to go to happyprofile.com or happycompanies.com starting next week. By the time this is live, it'll probably already be there.
Yep.
But individuals all over the world will be able to get a Happy free account and learn and to understand themselves better and even get 2 pieces of self-coaching for free every week.
Excellent. James, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Andy Temte. This is the Balancing Act podcast. You can find us on all the major streaming services, plus out on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your colleagues. This show is produced by Nicholas Temte, and we'll see you next time on The Balancing Act.